So excited.
All right, we are live on there. Let me make sure we're going on here. It's connecting. That's great.
Yeah, Maggie's got to do her magic control thing. So, so hello everyone out there. Thanks for joining us today at Purse Strings. As you know, we're here at noon Central Time in Chicago, presenting Purse Strings every Thursday. So we're in several groups. This is our group today, but we're so eager to welcome Marita. She'll be speaking to us today and telling us her amazing story. So I hope you jump in and take copious notes on how she really went from being way in the red to way in the black, and pick her brain about some strategies or kind of what made her so disciplined also to do so, which is also part of the equation as well.
Marita, where are you coming in from today?
I am also in Chicago. I am in the West Lakeview neighborhood. From my condo that I've spent a lot of time in now. In the last 12 months, I've spent more time in my home than I have ever in my life, I think.
I know, because you're a traveler. You're a world traveler too, right?
Yeah, I'm usually traveling, either for fun or for work, and so it's been a totally different lifestyle for me, but I'm enjoying it.
But you do have a partner in crime, right? Little doggo that stays with you.
Yes, I have her behind me. I gave her a special bone for the presentation, so hopefully she behaves and is quiet for the next 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Classic.
Looks like we have Madison checking in here.
Awesome.
Yeah, wait a couple minutes to get everybody logged on, We were minute to get their lunch or whatever. We should start calling this a lunch and learn, I think.
Yeah, it is a good time for lunch. I was thinking that.
Yeah. Yes, grab your lunch, grab whatever you need to do to make yourself comfortable. We're here every Thursday at noon. And let me just explain that the purpose of Purse Strings is to provide women free online tools and resources so that they can make smart financial decisions for their families and for themselves and for their financial future. And not only give them the tools and resources for free, but we've curated a list of top tier financial professionals. So all things financial, whether it be realtors or lenders, attorneys, financial advisors. And we have Marita here, who's a money coach. So, there's trajectories, right, over our lives as women of different financial transactions we may need to take. I know Maggie's in a different place financially than I am. Hello, California. But over our lifetime, we will need all these different financial providers. And we have them here as Purse Strings approved professionals, of which Marita is one as well. She has great success in what she does. And we wholeheartedly promote anyone who wants to get their money in order to work with Marita. Especially those of us who, or those of you young ladies who are, high potential earners right out of college, and might have come along with some debt, either, college debt or credit card debt or whatever it might be. And you think, oof, how am I going to move on with my life with all this debt? So Marita's going to show us the strategy and how she did that. Yeah, so welcome.
So let me give a little intro to Marita, and then we'll just jump right in. So Marita runs and owns Marita Ray Coaching. As a money mindset coach, she thrives working with young professionals to ditch their fears around money, get out of debt for life, and build their dreams for their future. So I don't know what else you could want. Sounds great.
Welcome.
All that, Marita, we'll give you the floor.
Thank you. Super excited to be here and talk a little bit about my story. I had a couple of things prepared, but definitely would like to make this as interactive as possible if people have questions. But as Maggie and Barb mentioned, I have started my own business venture, Marita Ray Coaching, where I'm going to be working with young professionals to really kind of start to rewrite their money story. So whether they're having a hard time getting out of debt, managing their money and a stress-free process for managing their money, or just really building plans for the future. There's kind of a 4-step process that I built from my own experience in going from negative $120,000 to just over $350,000 in wealth at this point in my 20s. Money has not always been easy for me. So this has been such a passion project and something that I've been really excited about because I didn't grow up with money. I didn't really grow up with a strong financial education, which I know is a very common theme for many young people. There's not really a platform for us to learn about money on a regular basis. And so that's why I've become so passionate about teaching personal finance and teaching that there's a way to do it without all of the stress and restriction that often comes with traditional money management. So I'm excited to talk about that a little bit today and about my programs that I'm running right now with my coaching groups. So a little bit about me. I mentioned some of this at a high level just now, but I'm not a financial advisor. So I know through Purse Strings, you might be working with many different financial advisors. And I've had a couple people who have come to me for more specific investment advice, of which I will definitely point to Purse Strings approved providers. But wanted to talk a little bit about my personal experience. So that's kind of really the I guess the premise behind my money coaching business right now is my personal experience. I've become a financial expert and a money expert through my experience, and that's really how I coach my clients. I've worked really hard to reframe my relationship with money, which I truly believe is a starting point when we think about kind of beginning this journey to financial freedom. And so it's still a work in progress, still something that I focus on even today is reframing my relationship with money and rewriting my money story. But really kind of getting honest with that at the beginning of my journey was a very important first step. So through that journey, I've paid off over $120,000 in student debt, which I'm sure I'm not alone. A lot of you on the line, I'm sure, have had student debt or still have student debt or kind of working through that journey. It can be very overwhelming and scary. But once I got serious about my plan to pay off debt and kind of came to terms with the fact that it was something that I had to do in order to move forward, I really quickly pulled together a plan to pay it off in 36 months. So that's something I'm really proud of. And since then, that was in about 2017, where I kind of cleared my debt landscape. I've been able to save quite a bit of money and started investing in the stock market, started investing in real estate, and have really started to get excited about personal finance now towards the end of my 20s. So through this, I've not necessarily restricted my lifestyle. I actually paid off my debt while I was living in Australia for work. I have a very conservative investment portfolio, so I don't believe that you need to know everything in order to get started and start to take a step in your journey to financial freedom. And I also still travel. I make purchases that are in alignment with my goals. I make money decisions. I go out to eat and do a lot of things that help provide the life that I want to live and create a less stressful environment. So I very strongly believe that money does not necessarily need to be stressful. It does not need to be emotional. It is a tool. And so getting really clear on our goals is the stepping stone to making money a lot less stressful for many of you online. So I want to talk a little, before we dive into some more of my findings and my story and my process, I want to talk a little bit about my program. So I very strongly believe in the premise of kind of interactive group coaching. I have not traditionally done well in kind of the self-led or test-taking type of courses. And so I have a great group right now that we've started earlier this month. And to take you through a little bit of kind of what that looks like, we do group coaching every other week for that 8 weeks. So there's 4 group coaching sessions and included in the 4 steps to financial freedom. We also do one-on-one coaching sessions. So in between those sessions, depending on where there are kind of trigger points for each of my individual clients, we might focus more on the money mindset, or we might focus more on the money management issues, or maybe the debt payoff or planning for the future. And so that's really customizable based on where you're at in your own experience and coming out of the group sessions where you feel the most pull. I have built out through my process across the last few months and years a wealth of different templates that I use for my kind of non-traditional form of budgeting, course materials, journal prompts that I share with my clients, and then also give 24/7. I'm not up in the middle of the night answering messages, but I do give 24/7 access to my clients through voice notes and messages, which has been a really great way to connect in between those one-on-ones or group sessions to kind of check in on progress, reaffirm or pressure test some of their thinking on decisions they're making, so that when we come back together as a group, everything makes sense and they're making progress. And then the last thing I think is going to be really important as well, we haven't done this with the current group yet, obviously, but is a 3-month postmortem. A lot of clients come to me saying, what am I going to do after the 8 weeks? How am I going to keep this going? And so the postmortem will allow us to kind of check in as a group on what still feels really good, maybe where we need to do some cleanup and housekeeping, and what the path forward looks like, and based on how our goals have adjusted. So all very important components. It's still kind of a work in progress too. I've been adjusting based on what feels really good for me, but really loving the group sessions and the group component because it allows for a lot more sharing and kind of airing out some of the dirty laundry that comes with money stories as well. So it all kind of started when I was starting to ask the question to my audience, what does financial freedom mean to you? And obviously, the answer became very clear. There is no right answer. Money is very, very personal. There is really no right answer for any individual person, right? Money is not the answer to everything, but for some people, it's a very, very personal, it's a very emotional thing, and it causes a lot of triggers that prevent us from moving forward in different areas of our lives that feel very uncomfortable right now. And so I've done a lot of market research across the last 12 months in my network, outside of my network, just to kind of find out what financial freedom means to different individuals across the globe and in different kind of stages of their life, but primarily across kind of that post-college, so 22, 23 to about 35 years old. And so if you flip to the next slide, Maggie, you'll see a little bit of some of the results of that market research. So these are kind of four areas that came up 10x when I was doing some of those surveys. Not feeling triggered when unexpected bills come along. I know that can be very triggering when we're not expecting something to come in the mail and we decide we have to pay for it and we don't have the funds ready. Not needing to check your bank account before buying something. So this comes up with a lot of clients, even who have more than enough in an emergency savings or more than enough in their checking account, but constantly feel that urge to just check in on things and make sure they're pressure testing their decisions without feeling that confidence out the gate. Comfort and ability to travel and spend without stress. So this has come up a lot. I think money is the thing that prevents us from doing those things that we really want to do that are at the top of our list. So that came up a lot when it came to financial freedom. And then obviously for me, a large part of it was being debt-free, having no loans. And so while I think that's a very important part of financial freedom and was certainly a part of my journey, I think there's a lot of the money stories that creep up even once we are debt-free that are worth addressing as part of that journey as well. So you're probably wondering what the 4 steps look like within my program. So kind of on the journey to financial freedom, I've categorized these 4 steps that really allowed me to get to that stage within my own world. So the first is the money mindset. So that's tackling your fears around money, airing out stories that have stuck with us since childhood. So things that our parents fought about or talked about when it came to money, or things that we heard on the playground around labels that we were wearing, or things like that. The second area is the financial landscape. So this is where we get into money management. So the ins and outs of the day-to-day of our spending. And this is very important as well because it also forces us to just kind of have a really clear look at what money we're making, what we're putting towards taxes, what we're putting towards our 401k. While also saying like maybe some of the things that are going out aren't that important to me, or maybe I can kind of reprioritize the things that I'm spending on a day-to-day or a monthly basis. The third is tackling debt. So this is getting really clear on a plan to prioritize your payoff and also providing some refinancing options, again, based on my own experience and what worked really well for me to accelerate those outcomes. And it's important that that comes after the money management piece, because once we kind of understand what's coming in, what's going out, we have to kind of then say, is this enough, right? Do we need to start looking at other forms of variable income, or do we need to scale back on some of those other areas in order to achieve these goals within our debt timeline? So these all kind of intertwine together. The money mindset piece shows up quite a bit. And then the plan for the future. One of the most eye-opening things in some of my early stages running the mini courses was that even just writing down your goals and your dreams was something most people have not done yet. So getting clear on like, what are my short-term dreams? What are my medium-term dreams? What are my long-term dreams? And understanding what those timelines look like, what those actual clear-cut goals look like, will help you fill in the pieces on steps 1, 2, and 3 as well. And so once you kind of get clear on those first 3 steps, you can start to see what that looks like and keep yourself accountable over the short, medium, and long term when it comes to actually pushing through to those results that you're looking for. Now, all along the way, I have realized that the mindset piece really matters. So I mentioned at the beginning that my mindset was maybe not perfect when I first started out on this journey. I didn't really understand how important it was to really address my relationship with money. I think we all put so much stress, fear, shame, onto our debt, our money decisions, things like that really prevent us from moving forward and kind of addressing things that we want to change, or doing things that we really love, or achieving our dreams. We kind of put the culprit as money. And so I guess I realized this on my journey when I had paid off my student loans. Wow, oh my gosh, I paid off $120,000 in student loans. I never thought it would be possible, especially in this timeline. I'm so excited, but I'm not that satisfied, right? I'm still kind of stressed. I'm not fully fulfilled when it comes to money. 2018, built my emergency savings fund of 6 months, kind of a recommendation for many of the traditional money coaches. Great, this is awesome. I'm still a little bit stressed though. I feel like I've got that safety net. I've got my debt paid off. I've got my regular income coming in. Started my first investment account in 2019, not too long ago. Really feeling good, feeling like I'm turning the dial. And that's kind of when it all became clear to me, and I kind of sat down and started to address some of my mindset around money, right? I had done so much, and you have to kind of pull up and be grateful for your experience, be proud of the things that you've accomplished, but also make sure that you're understanding what that looks like going forward. So this is an ongoing process for me. I still get triggered with certain money things. I still say no to things because of money, but I now know why that is, and I know why money is a tool. I respect my money a lot. I am grateful for the things that I'm able to buy, even things like my water or my heating and cooling on a hot day like today. And so thinking about decisions like that and shifting it a little bit has been really helpful for me, and something that is a tool that I'm really grateful to have as I continue forward. I want to pull up. I'm about halfway through. I don't know, Maggie or Barb or anyone on the audience. Do you guys have any questions or anything that you'd like me to elaborate on so far?
Well, we're loving what you're saying so far. So it's all been fabulous. Let me see if there's some questions coming in. There was one what was kind of your strategy to pay off your student loans?
Yeah. So honestly, I think when I got clear on the timeline. So I actually have a debt payoff tracker I can share with your audience. I created a little bit of like a mini freebie PDF that I'm going to share with your group after this that kind of takes through a high level of these 4 steps. But for the debt payoff, I have a debt payoff calculator that kind of maps out timelines, what the minimum payment is, what the actual payment is. And again, once I got clear on, okay, by 2017, about 5 years in from the time that I had graduated, I want to pay off my debt. And so that kind of lit a fire under me. So I had the plan. I think I had mapped out the entire regular payments, what that was going to look like. And then every time I'm in sales right now, so my current role provides me an opportunity to have variable income, which I'm really grateful for. Anytime I had extra money that wasn't going towards my kind of compulsory spend that month, I would start to allocate it to those higher interest loans. And so my process for kind of prioritizing those loans, I had probably 4 or 5 at any given time, is of course prioritizing them based on their interest rates. So kind of actually writing that out.
Like the snowball method.
Yes. So understanding, I mean, that's one of the biggest things I will say. I have so many friends and family who don't actually even know what types of loans they have, if they're public, if they're private, what interest rates they are, if they're compounding interest, if they're private loans, so those types of things, getting really clear. And it can be really scary, especially when you're looking at a number like 120,000, to actually take a closer look and kind of lift the veil on those loans. But once I was able to do that, I was able to kind of decide on what method worked for me. And I talked a little bit about this in one of my posts recently on the debt, snowball versus snowflake. There's a lot of different terminologies, but for me, I think mentally, the first thing I did when I got really serious about paying off my debt was I paid off the smallest amount first. So it wasn't necessarily the highest interest, but it was a private loan. And so it had that compounding interest component. And then once I got that kind of gratification of like, wow, I've made it to my first loan at $0. This is so motivating. I then moved and kind of really got clear on, okay, here are my public loans. Here's what the interest rates are. And started to tackle away at those. I will say for me, one of my loans was in my parents' name as a Parent Plus loan. And it was still like 7.5%. And that one was just really keeping me up at night because it was probably the largest one I had. And I didn't have necessarily like full direct control over it. So what I personally did, and again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to everyone. It depends. And right now there's a lot of different things happening with federal loans. But what I personally did is because there was no loan forgiveness, there wasn't any hold on interest, I actually refinanced that loan with another company and got the interest down about 2 percentage points. And also was able to manipulate my payoff period. So I said, okay, I don't want to start over again with 10 years. I'm going to put it at 6 years because that's manageable. And then anytime I had extra money, I would pay it off so that it came down faster. So for me, it was a little bit of like a 3-pronged approach. But once I started to get really familiar with it, it helped me actually map out the process for accelerating the time to pay off.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just about like getting started. It's like, well, it doesn't matter really right now if I'm paying off the smallest one or the highest interest. It's like I'm getting somewhere, and sometimes you just need a little bit of that fire to get you to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have clients right now too who are debating, do I not? I've been really excited about going on this trip for my 30th birthday or my 20th birthday. But I have credit card debt. Do I just totally forgo that? And I think there's a way to do both. I think you have to make sure that you're getting really clear on what's most important to you right now, and then making sure that it works with the timeline that you're working against for your debt. And so for me, that was important, not only celebrating those wins. So when I did pay off something, I had to celebrate that, but also not saying, oh, I'm not going to go to dinner with my friends every weekend for the next 3 years because I have to put everything towards my loans. But it was important for my mental state to actually continue to do that. Obviously, to a certain extent, you have to make sure you're monitoring expenses, but not necessarily cutting out everything that's bringing you joy, because that will lessen your motivation and it'll make it even more overwhelming. And that's when people kind of say, I'm going to give up, or I'm going to start this again next year. I'm going to put this on hold.
Well, it's your life. You got to live your life. I mean, there's a point where, you got one of them, so you got to enjoy while you're there. And then, but you have your goals, which is great.
Yep.
So I'm going to let you keep going for now.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the question. So going back to the mindset piece, this is actually something I didn't think I was going to be as excited about as I started my journey as a money coach, but it's become so apparent that this is actually one of the number one places people struggle, whether they realize it or not. So I think a lot of times we think, oh, I actually need help just like investing, or I need help with my money management. Or I've had people have come to me and just saying, can you just do it for me? I don't want to learn. And so I think that all stems from the money mindset of not wanting to face the fears, face the debt, face the decisions that are ahead of us. And I've become really interested in the psychology of it. And so the problem here is that we're programmed to think a certain way about money. So going back to the money mindset chat earlier, maybe there were conversations that our parents had in front of us, or maybe there was a significant event that involved money that has a really negative impact in your mind from even, as young as 3 or 4 years old. Or maybe, having conversations with a roommate in college was so taboo and you kind of got your hand slapped every time you brought it up. Like those are all things that stick with us and program our minds when we make money decisions. And it can really build up over time. And money is something that people are often told not to talk about, right? Like, let's not say anything. Let's just, put it under the rug for now. And it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. But I think that kind of clearing the air and starting to have more conversations around it will make it less of a taboo. We'll be able to see it with less emotions and use it again as a tool. And I know, Maggie, you've talked a lot about like the abundance mindset. I think that allows us to kind of welcome that abundance into our lives rather than hiding away from what money can bring us. So this is where I like to talk a lot about the ego versus reality. Obviously, when it comes to money, there's a lot of kind of self-image that's associated with it, shame, fear, doubt. That's our ego talking to us, right? Like, you'll never be able to pay off this much, this many loans. Like, you might as well try to like give up now, or you really shouldn't go on that trip. You've only got, 3x what you thought you'd have in your savings account by now. Those are our ego talking to us, telling us we shouldn't do things. And so pulling up and making sure that you understand the reality, and again, thinking of money as a tool that you have full control over, is going to allow us to really make progress when it comes to finding financial freedom. So we all have it in every area of our lives, probably, where our ego wants to bring us down or tell us stories that aren't true. But again, clearing the air and getting really clear on what your money landscape looks like right now, what your goals look like, that will allow us to step into reality and take back the control of our money versus what everyone's telling us or what our mind is telling us on a regular basis. So this goes back to more of the psychology, but it really is interesting how much we associate with, having that nice bag because everyone in our work has the same bag, or we really shouldn't go on that trip because, my siblings can't afford to go on that trip. But like, again, getting clear, taking back control of your own story is going to be super important. And I think it's something a lot of people don't even realize it's being impacted. Or it's impacting them. So connecting your reality with your goals and then making the money decisions based on that versus what your mind is telling you. So moving into the money management piece, just to give you guys a little bit of an insight into how I manage my money. I don't know if this is going to be an unpopular opinion, sometimes it is, but I don't have a strict budget. I don't have an Excel budget that I use to track my monthly expenses. And it works really well for me. Again, going back to kind of that restrictive mindset, the way that I manage my money, and I think it can be categorized as a budget, so I don't need to say budgets are bad, don't budget. Obviously, there's a time and a place where budgets are really, really important. For me, what worked, even while I was paying off a significant amount of debt, was to take a look at what's coming in. So I mentioned that at the beginning, what's coming in, actually taking a very close look at my pay stub, taking a look at what variable income options I had, whether it be through my current job or through things like side hustles like babysitting or writing a blog or whatever it may be. And then from there, understanding, okay, this is what's coming in net, every month, and then making a list of what's going out. The top things that would be on my what's going out list were always things like rent, my student loans, maybe some groceries that were kind of mandatory for that month, my phone bill. But there was a small list of compulsory spend, so things that were absolutely necessary for me to spend on every month. And once I had kind of paid those at the very beginning of the month, I could see what was left and decide, okay, this month I have a little bit more flexibility around going to dinner with my friends a few more times than I thought. All right, I'm going to buy some, in COVID, during quarantine, I was buying really fancy groceries because I was like, I'm not going out to eat, but I want to treat myself. So maybe a steak and some wine or whatever it may be. And some months I needed, I would go on a trip with my friends and I'd have to cut back on some of those groceries. Maybe I'd be eating, chickpeas and soup for those months when I was really deep into debt. But getting really clear on that every single month helped me understand where I had some room to play around with. And again, it ebbed and flowed, but rather than kind of sticking each category into a bucket every month and trying to help myself manage that was really deflating for me. It was really defeating to have something like that. And so as a young professional, as someone who likes to try new experiences, new restaurants, new adventures, it was really important for me to have that flexibility on a month-to-month and a week-to-week basis to make my own decisions without feeling the need to go into debt, but have a little bit more flexibility so that my mindset was kept in check. And so this is when it starts to get real, right? You make a list of what's coming in, what's going out, how much you might be able to put into savings that month. And just so you guys know too, right now, savings and investment direct deposits or direct investment funds are a part of my non-negotiable spend. So they're part of my compulsory spend every month, just because I've kind of paid off my debt and I have that flexibility. That has also become a really important priority for me, is putting a certain amount away every month. So that's one of the things I do at the start of the month as well. But at certain points throughout my journey, when I was deep into debt, I realized, okay, this isn't really enough this month. I don't know if I can go out to eat or go on that bachelorette party or go on this trip I've really been dreaming about. And so you guys can see here, this is one example. There's been a few examples throughout the presentation. I love to travel. I've lived abroad many times. I love to see new countries. I love to do those types of things. Unfortunately, can't do as much of that right now. But I realized, okay, I need to find some ways to make additional income. So whether that be through my current role and finding additional sales opportunities, or through things like babysitting and working as a virtual assistant or whatever it may be for that month, I was always open to new opportunities to make money while I was paying off debt. And so having an honest look at those two things and saying, okay, this is manageable, I can do this, or okay, I need to figure out what's next for me. This isn't covering the life that I want to live. I don't feel comfortable with the tightness of the money every month. And so having an honest look at that and saying, okay, maybe I need to make a change if that's not working for you. And so if we go to the next slide, I'll get into a little bit around ways to increase the gap. So I think the first thing is shifting into that abundance mindset. So knowing that if it doesn't look on paper like the life that you want to live, it's still possible, right? So starting to call in that life and say, this isn't working for me. I want this or something better. I want this or something better. And so once you kind of put that out into the world, write it down, make a promise to yourself, you can start to put things into action that will help you get there, right? Money is an infinite resource. It is not restricted. We have control over it if we're willing to make some changes. So some ways to increase the gap that I like to talk about are here's a few, I guess. There's probably an infinite list that we could talk about. Number one, are there bills that I pay every month, like my phone bill, like my rent, like my car insurance, that are negotiable? I think a lot of times people don't realize that those things are all negotiable. Even, an Airbnb, your phone bill, your credit card interest, like all of those things are negotiable. And so taking a look at those and thinking about the last time that you had a conversation around the fees that you're paying, especially now during the pandemic, there are a lot of these conversations being had. And just asking for some flexibility or sharing a little bit more about your story is one way to start to increase the gap between what's coming in and what's going out. Increase your salary through negotiation. So in addition to my coaching business, I am a sales leader. So I manage 6 people and always encourage this conversation around salary. So increasing your salary through negotiation, whether it be in your current role, if you can come with a list of metrics and success stories and market research based on your role, absolutely have that conversation with your manager if it's a company you want to stay with and want to just make sure that you're being paid fairly. I know this is a passion conversation for Barb and Maggie as well, just with women in general. We need to make sure we're being paid fairly. And so having those conversations on a regular basis is so important. And I have a list of bullet points that I could send through at some point on how I would start that conversation. But that's one way. The other way is making a career move. So maybe you're not getting paid the way that you want to be paid at your company, or you just feel the need to make a transition. Making an external move and being able to openly negotiate your salary can be a great way to increase your income pretty drastically in one fell swoop. Even if you're not fully making a career transition, you can also just be interviewing and starting to understand what other people in a similar level of experience in a similar role to you are making, or what your worth is out in the business world. So you can go back and have those more detailed conversations and negotiations with your employer. So keep that in mind. It's not taboo to talk about. I am a manager. I don't necessarily, need to have these conversations every day, but I expect them when someone's not being paid fairly. So think about that as well. And then I'm always a big advocate for sales. So if you're passionate about something and you feel like you could be a great proponent for a sales role, that's a huge way to have that variable component and more control over your income. I pretty much always, and especially when I was in debt, use my base salary as kind of my live-off salary, and then the rest of it either went towards paying off debt or now goes towards savings and investments. So it gives you a lot more flexibility in how to manage your money and how to build wealth if you have that variable income component. Another way to build that variable income component is to build a side hustle or have a passive form of income, whether that be something like having a real estate rental property, or even just building an online course or having a blog, something that kind of brings in a regular revenue for you. There is a lot of talk online right now about different forms of passive income and side hustles. Everyone has something that you're really good at that you could even do as like a freelancing role. So start to think about what that could be for you. And then finally, when you're ready, invest. So this is a great way to build wealth. It's another form of passive income, I guess, as the stock market grows, as that compound interest grows. That's a great way to continue to build wealth. I've had a lot of fun learning how to invest from friends and family. And it's been really cool to see my money work for me now that I've established that kind of baseline knowledge and can kind of take control of it myself and continue to learn more. So moving into the debt portion. So just some facts for you. Millennials have an average of almost $5,000 in credit card debt at an average interest rate of almost 18%. So that's pretty daunting. I personally have never had a ton of credit card debt based on some other money stories that I have, but I do have a lot of friends and family and clients who do. And so I think it's something very important to address. And I think my knowledge in paying off student loans definitely applies. It's a little different, but definitely applies to the same payoff kind of plans and process. And then on the student loan side, nearly 45% of millennials have debt, around 33% on average. That can seem like a lot. It is a lot, but I had 4 times that amount and I was able to do it. So hopefully you guys feel empowered. I don't feel like it was, I didn't shut down my life. It is totally doable. Getting really clear is the first step. So those are just some facts. And again, reasons why I'm really passionate about personal finance right now. I already talked a little bit about the debt payoff, so I won't go crazy into that right now, but there are a lot of options. And once you get clear on your debt payoff plan, this is where we start to have a lot of fun. So we get really clear on goals, short, medium, long-term goals. They're all important. They all might mean something different for you. Maybe the short term is less than a year. Maybe the medium is 3 to 5 years, and the long term is 5 to 10 years, right? I personally have to kind of pull up and do this on a regular basis because it might change, and that's okay. But having something to work towards and make sure that you're motivated towards and knowing that it is accessible is extremely important. So I would encourage all of you guys listening in today to really sit down and write out these 3 categories of your goals. It'll also be included in the PDF that I'll send through, but getting really clear on what that looks like for you, and then making sure that you can start to reverse engineer the rest of the pieces. So the debt payoff, the money management, it'll all start to come together if you know what these look like. And then just to summarize, I know this is a lot for 40 minutes, so I wanted to make sure I kind of gave some good action steps. Again, this is based on my own personal experience. Obviously, for each person, hopefully that's come across. It's very personal. I think the biggest theme is just being accountable and making sure that you are aware. Awareness and accountability are the 2 most important things. Being aware of your story, being aware of your situation, and holding yourself accountable or having others hold you accountable. That's why I'm a big proponent for coaching, because coaching has made such an impact in my life. I'm helping others stay accountable on shifting things for themselves. But the first step in all of this is really shifting your money story. Again, it's the most woo-woo part of the process, but I am a huge advocate for getting really honest with yourself. And I'll send through some journaling prompts that help you do that. But just getting really honest with yourself of like, what is my money story? What would I do if money was not an issue for me? What would I be wearing? Where would I be? Who would I be with? Those types of things are going to be so critical. Build an emergency fund. So depending on your level of risk, there's many personal factors that are going to be important here. General guidance is kind of 3 to 6 months, but I have clients right now who are living at home and we're working with just a $1,000 emergency fund while we work on paying off their high interest debt. Could mean something different. I have a mortgage right now. So for me, I have to have a little bit closer to that 6 month kind of bare bones expenses just to make sure that if, the world ended, I would be able to manage my expenses. For each person, it's different, again, depending on that level of risk. When I was renting, I could go live with my parents, for example. That wasn't as much of an issue, but for each person, it's very different. So that's where we kind of talk one-on-one about what your personal situation looks like. Then make sure you're paying off your credit card debt and any high interest student loan debt. So it's usually kind of the 7.5% plus is where we'll start to target. Once you've kind of built out that plan for that high interest debt, leveraging your 401k match at work is very important. This is something none of us know enough about coming out of college. And so very important to make sure you're aware and at least getting that free money from your employer if there is a match. And if not, and if you're not in kind of corporate 9 to 5, there are other ways to invest in your retirement as well. And so just bringing awareness to that and talking with a money coach or a financial advisor is really important while you're young, because that time will help you grow your money over a period that you could have never imagined. It's so important to get this done while you're young. And then from there, I have this intertwined. For me, my story was important for me to pay off my low interest debt before I really started to invest. For some people, though, again, depending on your level of risk, your knowledge base, your interest in investing, you might be able to do both at the same time. And so that's, again, where we have a lot of fun in some of my coaching sessions is depending on what those goals are and what you would like to get started first, we can do both, or we can kind of play around with those options depending on what your debt payoff periods are, what your goals are, how much you want to have by X date. So all of this is very personal. There are no right or wrong way to do it, but I think, even if you're listening to this right now, that's kind of the first step is just starting to inform yourself on personal finance. And I hope to talk with more of you about this in the future, but this is kind of my spiel. I will pull up and see if there are any questions or any additional thoughts.
It was a great information and a really great plan for people to get started. You got to start with loss of words right now. You got to start. You got to start with your money story, and then start with that emergency savings, which is really great. Let me see if anyone has any questions. Feel free to write them in. I would love to know what is one of your biggest money mindset shifts that one of your biggest ones that you would just blew you away.
There's so many. I think, one, I actually posted that plug for my Instagram. I posted about it today. And I think that a lot of the money mindset stuff is actually, it's met with a lot of resistance. So it's something I'm really passionate about, but I think people don't want to talk about. And so I'm starting to learn more. But one thing that came up, and I think it applies to me and a lot of the clients I work with is not having money the ultimate excuse for not doing what we want. And so even now I have a very strong control over my money situation. I will say no to things. I can't, I kind of joke, I can't afford it, or I can't do this. It's usually because I just don't want to do something. And so also just having that confidence in saying no to things that we don't want to do or that we don't want to spend our energy on. But I think that's a confronting thing, right? Saying you can't afford something that you really want, I think is BS. I think that if you really want it, then it's something that you could work towards and figure out a plan to get to. And that's where people need to shake the mindset, block of, I will never be able to afford it. I will always be living paycheck to paycheck. Mine was, I will never get out of debt, or I will, have to find a way out, bankruptcy, something where I can just dissolve my debt. And I obviously, I think when I pulled up after that 36-month period of getting serious, I was like, wait, if I can do this, anyone can do this. And so a culmination of those things, I think it's just really about, you can do anything if you really want it and if you really kind of double down on a plan.
Right, exactly. That's great advice. It's great advice right there. And then what are some of the resources, books, podcasts that you think really helped you, or you like to listen to and would recommend?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have been really interested in the podcast Afford Anything. And then I love Brene Brown. She's kind of in the leadership / mindset space. And so Dare to Lead was a huge book for me. When it comes to money, I'm trying to think of anything else. I have honestly gained the most, I think, in the last few years from just having a conversation with people that I admire, who know a lot about finance. So one of my good friends, Josh, he's taught me a lot about investing. And so once I kind of open the conversation and say, I want to learn more about this, it's helped me to go out and do my own research. So I would say just talking with your network of family and friends who you've seen do it is also a great way to get started.
That's awesome. That's really great. Well, that was great. Let me see if Dr. Barb has anything else to add today.
That was all such great information. Marita, you offer some really great tips and kind of strategies to get along the way. It takes, though, a lot of discipline, don't you think? I mean, 36 months with like a big chunk of your pay going every month to pay off these debts. At some point you might say, but I could take this big hunk of money and go buy some stuff or go travel, but I'm going to put it towards my loans. I mean, did you ever struggle with that?
Yeah. And I think that's where I agree. It does take discipline. And I think that's where I had to get really clear on my goals and like when I wanted to pay it off by. But I think it also means not restricting everything else. So when I was talking about not saying no to every trip, but maybe cutting back and giving myself a little bit of a budget on a trip or something like that. Still saying yes, but giving myself some restriction there. But also I think the time thing was actually the thing that opened up the opportunity. So getting clear on the timeline and getting it done while you think, oh, I could be doing all this, with the money I'm putting towards my loans, once I got through that, now I am able to do that. So getting it done early and getting it done in an efficient manner is actually allowing me to do way more. And I have a lot of friends and family in my life that didn't have any debt and are still they don't know, or they're not willing to learn about personal finance. And so there's no, bad time to get started. Like if you get started now, that's great. And it will all work out the way that it's supposed to. But I think people have such a stigma for, that debt, the money you're putting towards your debt, is being wasted, but it could have been towards something that I didn't really care about and I didn't realize at the time.
Exactly. It was a meaningful transaction that ultimately kind of sets you free in lots of different ways too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great.
Now I'm a lot more grateful for it and the experience I had because I learned a lot.
Yeah, right. And what I admire about you is that you built out a plan, right? You said, this is my problem. This is the plan. And I love the fact that you kind of figured out a term, like for 36 months, I'm going to do this and I'll be debt free, which I think really shows that it wasn't like, oh, someday I wish I was debt free, but really you made a plan, you had a strategy, you knew kind of what your variables were, but you still allotted some money for yourself as well to live your life. So kudos to you. And I'm glad that you're sharing these strategies with other folks because they don't know how to get started. I think that if you provide a well-worn path that's been proven, you can really help a lot of people. So I'm so glad that you were with us today to share how you did it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun working with you guys.
Yeah, this has been great.
Thank you again, Marita. You can always reach out to Marita at maritaraycoaching.com. She's also one of our wonderful Purse Strings approved providers, so you can check her out on our website, pursestrings.co. And we'll have our whole one-page handout put out tomorrow with our overview of the presentation. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to Marita. She'd be happy to talk. So thank you again, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marita.